you're choosing your beads, when you're taking the time and effort to make something, what's actually going to enhance my wardrobe and really work for me and something that I'll love?
Smooth people wear smooth jewellery, texture people wear texture jewellery, but what about in the middle? We're joined again today by Imogen Lamport from Inside Out Style, and we're talking today about texture and how that relates to your clothing and to the jewellery that you make. Welcome, Imogen. Thank you for joining us again.
Thank you very much, Carol, for having me.
Okay, so now I find texture very interesting. It's one that really shocked me when I did your course, 7 Steps to Style. I always loved shiny things, and I realised that shiny things don't really suit me that well. So tell me why that is.
So our sheen and our texture, these elements of clothing and accessories, relate to our skin and our hair. So if you have really smooth skin, if you have shiny skin, if you have smooth hair, if you have shiny hair, shiny will look better and smooth will look better. If you have more textured hair, curly hair, coarse hair, or if you have more textured skin, so as we get older it tends to get a little bit more textured, then you will find that more, textured garments and textured pieces actually suit us. In between, like shiny and matte, there's also sheen in the middle. So, it's not just two extreme ends. So each of these is a bit of a continuum. And this can change over time as well. So, it's one of those things that you might find that when you are, young and beautiful and you are shinier, and as you get older, you become more matte. So, that can happen. Or, like grey hair is often seen as coarser and it's got less shine. Like when I had the black hair, it was much shinier. It's not shiny in the same way. So the shiny that used to work really well for me doesn't work as well now as it did when I had that hair that bounced off. So when you look at any shampoo commercial, what colour hair do they use? The flip at the end, it's
always dark.
Dark, because dark hair has more shine than any other colour.
When I was younger, I would have loved to have long, straight hair. It was just my dream to have long, luscious, thick, straight hair. But of course, it doesn't suit me because I've worn it many times in my lifetime, and every single time I come back to cutting it off because I need something a little bit more choppy, right?
Yeah. And too, you go, well, it doesn't necessarily work for your skin tone either, because you've got the skin of someone who is fairer rather than someone who is dark.
If I'm I'm obviously a matte person, and but I love sparkly jewellery. So tell me how that works.
So this is where you have some matte, but I'm seeing some light bounce off your skin. So you do have some sheen to you.
Could just be the good lighting.
Yeah, but it's there. Like I'm seeing that bounce off you, which means that you do have some sheen. So that sheen, and essentially a pearl is more of a sheen than a shine.
Right.
So if you think about the crystal faceted things, they are more shine. But if they're faceted, they have more texture, which also works for your hair. So this is where we're getting that balance between texture and shine as well. So it is thinking about that. I mean, I've just got a couple of images here. When my daughter was young, we were going through my school photos. The class photos where everybody looks terrible and nobody looks like themselves as an adult. And she picked me out of all these, like first grade, second grade. She was like, there you are, there you are, there you are. And I was like, how is she doing that? And I asked her and she said, look, shiny, 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 shiny. Now, at this time, you can see how, that's my daughter. She's a beautiful little thing back then. She's now turning 18. And you can see that dark hair that I used to have. But you see how shiny my skin.
Yeah, absolutely. Compared with your daughter too.
Yeah, and she's matte and I'm shiny. So this whole thing that, like you turn 40 and you have to go matte, it's a load of garbage. It's really based on what your skin is. And it actually relates to makeup colours as well. So if you have shinier skin, look for, makeup with pearlescence rather than really matte makeup, because that will actually work better on your skin. So then it's thinking about, well, what jewellery and all that sort of stuff, what actually goes with that.
In terms of jewellery, you've got a slide on screen about showing us metallics. Talk us through that.
People often often say, well, what metallics? Now, we did talk in the colour video we did, all about, like, what should I have, a warm or a cool metallic? But also, too, if we're thinking about the colours that suit us, if I have a more muted or greyed down smoky palette, I'll actually suit a more brushed metal. Rather than if I have a bright palette, I'm going to suit more shiny or brighter sort of metals. So I've just got that image here with the warm, cool ones at the top and warm ones down the bottom, how we can think about that. Kind of, we've got our really shiny and sparkly down to our much more brushed and soft sort of metals.
So if we're on the left-hand side, we might go for a brighter silver or gold.
Yes.
If we're on the right-hand side, we might go for more of a Tibetan or Tibetan style silver or gold.
Yeah, so more brushed, softer, so not quite so shiny and in your face. Yes.
Let's talk about texture.
So when we think about texture, so this relates to, as I mentioned earlier, the texture of your hair, the texture of your skin. So there is also everything, it's a scale from really textured all the way down to really smooth. So if you're overall smooth hair, smooth skin, you look better in smoother textures. If you have, say, a bit of wavy hair, or say like Carol, you've got a textured hair, but it's not super textured, then you look good in a bit of texture, or even think a pattern like what you've got on with a marl. So marl pattern, like in your t-shirt, has a feeling of texture to it, rather than my t-shirt, which is completely flat. Or we can have garments that have some texture. So we can have garments like lace, which have a fine texture. Or we can have like bobbly knits and chunky knits, which have a much more heavily textured. And these look better on much more textured people. So if you're really smooth, those really textural garments won't work as well. Like I used to always think every time I wanted to wear a coat that's kind of got a pony skin look about it, but that kind of furry thing that goes different directions, and I would just curl my hair. The days I wanted to wear that, curl my hair, then the texture works. So this is where we can sometimes go, today I want to straighten my hair, I'll wear something smoother. Tomorrow I want to have, more wavy hair, I can wear something more textured.
How does that work with your jewellery? Smooth people wear smooth jewellery, textured people wear textured jewellery, but what about in the middle?
We can think about textures and, outfits as well. Jewellery has a little bit of texture often because it's made from multiple pieces frequently. But we can look at then how does it relate back to our outfits. So now as you're more textured, like if you've got the more textured hair, you might find more textural jewellery or more differences in like lighter and darker, depending on your value contrast, can also give that feeling of more texture. If you're like, say me, more smooth, I can either wear the smooth jewellery like I do here on the left, but if I want to wear a more textural piece, maybe want to wear a more textural garment like this beautiful tie handmade embroidered kimono, which has a feeling of a little bit more texture. And in fact, you'll see that necklace, it's little sparkly beads, so they're faceted, but they're really quite textured because they're put out on pieces of wire, and so it's got this really textured appearance. But because the beads got that element of shine, and they've got they've got a bit of facet, but they've got that sparkliness to them, that works back with the lower texture of me.
So even if you wanted to up the texture for that one, you could use a really faceted bead with that same necklace and it would increase the texture even more. Or if you wanted to dull it down a bit, you could add a smoother bead.
You could have a rounder bead, say, so rather than a faceted bead.
So if you're a highly textured person, you'll be looking to choose faceted beads. You'll be looking to use lots of metal that has a rougher surface and maybe a Tibetan silver, so using that roughness there. If you're a smoother person, then you're looking for smoother beads, maybe a bit of sheen and some sparkle. What if I'm a matte person and I really love sparkly, faceted, high AB finish beads? What do I do then?
So this is where smooth and a bit of sheen can go well together. Texture and a bit of like sheen, but faceted. So you think about it like we've got the different elements of that bead. So as long as it's something in common with you, remember jewellery is a small proportion. Again, it's a focal point. We're wanting people to look here. And it's not overwhelming, unless you're wearing like a head to toe sequence or something. It's not overwhelming you in the same way.
I don't think any of my audience is doing that.
No, it's only a small proportion.
Yeah. And I did do a video just a little while ago on adding texture to a jewellery piece. So if you want to watch that one, I'll link it below. I also did a video just recently on how to take a pearl necklace, a plain pearl necklace, and add a little bit of edge to it by adding some charms and a heart pendant and things, and I actually use the same heart but in red. That's another way that you can take something really classic from your classic personality style, which is really smooth and shiny, and add some texture to it. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go all or one. You can mix it up a bit.
And your personality is always going to come into this as well. So if you've got a bit more feminine personality, maybe the little bits of bling are more you, versus if you're more relaxed, you're probably going to want to go for more that Tibetan style, the smoother, and the not so shiny and the more textural element. It's like the polished turquoise rather than the sparkly faceted crystal.
So if you haven't watched the personality out of this interview, then make sure you go back and do that, and I'll leave that linked below. Have you got anything else to say to us about texture?
Honestly, we could think about it that there's so many different elements to style and making choices. There's no one really right or wrong way. In the end, we want to love it. You don't love it, there's no point. Just because it fits the rule, it won't give you the confidence that makes you feel great. It's something you've got to love. It's something that relates to who you are. And then we want to think about, are they the right colours? Is this in harmony with me? So just, again, repeating what we are seeing in a way with who we are. I've been in wardrobes where I've seen, garments that really don't relate to a person. And I've often asked, so tell me why you've chosen this. And the number of times they've said, oh, because the woman in the shop looked great wearing it. And I'll say, did she look like you? No. And it's like the reason she looked great is because it related to her and her colouring and her value contrast and her texture and her sheen and all those things. Versus you look great in the things that relate to you. Getting that knowledge, getting that style education to figure out which are the right things for you means you can make those really educated choices when you're choosing your beads, when you're taking the time and effort to make something. I always think it's great to go, well, what's actually going to enhance my wardrobe and really work for me and something that I'll love.
Yeah, and just because you get your colours right doesn't necessarily mean that you get everything else right. You could look at a person who looks quite similar to you, wear the same colours, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're right. Now, Imogen has kindly offered that if you sign up for one of her courses using the link in the description box below, she will give you 2 free courses. So that is a pretty cool deal. The courses that she is going to give you are an outfit masterclass, and that is valued at $47, and an online shopping guide. That one's valued at $97, so worth taking advantage of that. In this series, we've talked about personality, we've talked about colour, we've talked about body shape, texture, and value and contrast. And that's, a lot to put into an outfit, but it's taking small steps, learning about your personality and how that relates to what you wear, and then talking about your body shape and how that relates. We have talked about all those things in this series, and I'll leave links to those in the description box below. Thank you so much, Imogen. This has been so fascinating talking with you about all these things.
My pleasure. Thank you, Carol.
Make sure you check out the other episodes in this series, and we'll talk again soon.